1986 was the first day that I arrived at Taylor Field and saw it. And I walk into this locker room, and I mean, it was just like, I've arrived. I said, this is the place I want to be. I just fell in love with it.
Welcome to Bobby Jurasin, His Story. This show is brought to you by the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. I'm Dan Toth, and I'll be your host for the next 30 minutes as we take a look at the football career of Saskatchewan's Bobby Jurasin. The fans of the Canadian game often typify their football team. When it comes to the Saskatchewan Roughriders, no truer statement can be made. Fans of the Rider Nation are spread throughout Canada and the United States. It's a community they call Riderville, a place where the flag waves green and white and football fans live and die with each game played. In 1986, a new era was upon the Riderville faithful as Bobby Jurasin, a wide-eyed 21-year-old defensive end from Northern Michigan University, was leading the charge. We have been asked by Bobby Jurasin to dedicate this show to the Rider Nation and all of its fans, past and present, of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And now, Bobby Jurasin, his story.
Everybody's got a story, and I seem to have a lot of them.
And tonight we welcome Bobby Jurasin into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame.
Wow. It's beyond words to be one of the members that are getting inducted into the Canadian Hall of Fame. It's beyond words. I'm thinking maybe someday that you might actually get to this, and now it's here. It's wow. It's beyond words.
Bobby Jurasin, this plaque signifies your official induction to the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Bobby came from Bessemer, Michigan, which is a really small town. He had a great career with us, and the one thing I remember is in the big games, he was exceptional. He really came to play on those days.
I went there as a 6-foot, 235-pound kid out of a small Class D school, and went there and made an impact right out of the gate.
Bobby was totally self-motivated. He just drove the opponents nuts. I'd talk to their coaches after the games, and they just shake their head and go, you know, we can't block that guy. When he was playing, it was all football. He was quick. He was exceptionally quick. Worked hard. Very courageous. His enthusiasm, his aggressiveness. It's hard to pick out one thing. He had all those qualities that make a great player. It wasn't easy for him to perform at that level, but he did exceptionally well.
Jurasin rushes off the edge, huge collision. Oh!
I thought he was totally football, and it wasn't until after he got done playing that I realized, you know, he had a sense of humor.
That's a different kind of story going on there, too. I mean, it starts to let you know how cutthroat of a business football really is. Northern Michigan was about 2.5 hours from my house. Well, my brother had kind of trailblazed the way there for me. He was a quarterback. We played on the same team as a junior and senior, and he was having a good freshman year. But then he ran into the injury bug. He shattered his thumb on his throwing hand and kind of got set back a little bit. Had a few more injuries, and before you know it, they release him and give me his scholarship. So in essence, I took my brother's scholarship when I went to university. If it wasn't for my brother, my nickname used to be Cuddles. Used to be Cuddles when I was a small kid because I was a little cuddly, soft and thing, but my brother made sure I was a hard ass by the time it was all said and done.
Jurasin rushing the quarterback. Jurasin with the sack. Nothing cuddly about that hit.
The story goes, well, Jack Goat at the time was the head coach in Saskatchewan.
I talked to his coach, Jack Goda.
His family grew up in the Hurley, Wisconsin area, which was only 10 miles from my house of Bessemer, Michigan.
He was the last guy taken to camp.
Jack Goda was basically an Upper Peninsula boy, which we called Yoopers, and he gave a Yooper a chance to come up to Saskatchewan as one of the last invitees to training camp and gave me an opportunity and a chance. He opened the door.
Jurasin bursts through. Sack Jurasin. What a find.
1986 was the first day that I arrived at Taylor Field and saw it. I was a 21-year-old kid coming out of college, didn't have a job, and I walk into this locker room, and I mean, it was just like, I've arrived. I said, this is the place I want to be. I just fell in love with it. Saskatchewan's been such a huge part of my life, and you know, they say, well, Saskatchewan's so flat you can sit on your back porch and watch your dog run away for 3 days. They weren't lying. It is flat, but in that flat, there's a lot of beauty of the wheat and the flax and everything that they have growing. It's a different kind of beauty. I just fell in love with the place. It wasn't the Grey Cup win. It was the first time I went there. That's when I fell in love. And it's like when I met that stadium, I knew it was right. It was perfect for me.
At Taylor Field, Burgess takes the snap. He rolls right to the short side, throws downfield. Open is Bobby Jurasin. Makes the catch at the 20, ahead to the 10, to the end zone, touchdown.
You know, through the years, you start to realize that, yeah, okay, you know, everything like that's got to come to an end. Yeah, I'm not 17 anymore, and you know what it was like to feel like when you were 17. Okay, you've done something since you were 7 years old. Now all of a sudden, you don't do it. You've done it since you were 7, and I played till I was, 34 years old. I was a pro at 21, turned 22, all pro by 23. And then all of a sudden, it's taken away. That competition, it's what you miss is that competition of just going out there and competing at the highest level and trying to be the best. It's a hard thing to replace.
Bobby Jurasin walking off the field. It's over now. Playing, fighting to get this far. And suddenly, it is over.
There's no liking football. I mean, you gotta love it, because there's no way you can do what you're supposed to do and compete at a high level if you don't love it.
Jurasin on the rush. Pressure on, he's hit. Jurasin is playing possessed. This guy loves to play.
I mean, I want to go out there and have 12 guys that want the same goal in mind.
Great evening for football. What a hit! Huge collision.
Sure, some guys want to win, but are they willing to do what it takes to win?
Jurasin and the defense. The Riders using all their weapons. That's teamwork.
I mean, if I don't go out there and trust the guy I'm playing beside, it's pretty hard for me to lay my nuts on the line for that guy. There's no in between. I mean, I want it. When I want something really bad, there's no in between. I don't kind of, sort of, I'll do it.
30, 40, Rider return at 50. Jurasin and the defense have helped end a 4-game losing streak. Touchdown, Saskatchewan.
But you weren't doing it for the money. You got to come up here and look just for the love of the game. And once you understand that you're just playing for the love of the game and to compete against another, I mean, just to compete and play the game that you love to play, it makes things even better.
Passing has a target over the middle, finds Elgart, makes the catch, it's a touchdown, and a Saskatchewan team record.
Go out there and do what comes naturally to you. It's the discipline, courage, effort, enthusiasm that you have. It wasn't just Bobby Jurasin standing on the edge at the rush end spot making the plays. I mean, it's what everybody does as a collective unit, and that's what made it so special, because it's hard to say it was just Bobby Jurasin. It wasn't. All the guys on there did certain things at certain times. I'm one of 11. It's a kid's game. Play with a smile on your face.
On the march, they give the handoff up the
There's
middle.
no pressure when you're playing the game.
And he's tackled by
I
Jurasin.
learned the old school from the old guard.
Jurasin never gives up.
Effort, discipline, courage, enthusiasm, and pride.
He fights off one defender, picked up by another blocker, still in pursuit of the quarterback.
And that was something that was taught to me back at Northern Michigan. If anybody lives their life by those 5 principles, can be successful.
Jurasin, what a hit. Quarterback is back, he's in trouble. Sack, Jurasin.
I had great teachers along the way to get me to that point. Those guys, I mean, the Herb Grenkes, the Bill Rademakers, the Mark Moranis, Jerry Rosbergs, if I didn't have the guidance and the coaching, I would not have made it to the next level. The coaches made me more than a football player. They made me a man.
And back from center, here comes Jurasin and the blitzing Saskatchewan defense. Hit the quarterback, the ball pops loose, picked up, they're at midfield. They return it, Edmonton 50, Edmonton 40, won't be caught, Edmonton 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown, Saskatchewan.
I wanted to coach at Northern Michigan. First of all, my wife got me the job. She said she accepted the job for me. I didn't even say yes. She said, he'll be there. So, no, that's another story. To go back to that, I went back to Northern so I could give back. There's nothing I could ever replace the playing, But I'm sure once I mellow out here, when I get a little bit older and grow up one of these days, I still haven't matured enough to get over it. So coaching's fun for me. I mean, I like to think of it as more as teaching. I want to teach them the game of football, but also I want to teach them a little something different. I want to teach them about themselves, and hopefully I create something other than a football player.
Jurasin rushing the quarterback. He's in trouble. Sack Jurasin. Bobby is the leader of this defense.
Now, the only other place that I would ever consider, where do I have salt in? The place that I know, the place that I love, the place that I helped build. Saskatchewan gave so much to me, I would be willing to sacrifice some of the time that I spend with my family so I could give back, to repay the favor that was given to me, because I was fortunate, privileged, honored to be a Rider.
Green is the color, football is the game. We're all together, and winning is our aim. So cheer us on through the sun and rain. Saskatchewan Rough Riders is our name.
Rider pride, it's the farmers that work their ever-living butts off, and they spend their hard-earned money to come and watch you play the game. It's the whole province in itself. I mean, you're living on the prairies, and she's 60 below for 3 weeks straight, and that wind's howling. It takes a different kind of person to live in Saskatchewan. It makes you tougher.
Well, I've got an update on your little game, Lester. I heard it's canceled due to lack of interest.
And they're nuts in Saskatchewan. I mean, you can get 26,000 people in there and make it sound like 60.
Attention shoppers. Just a quick reminder, today is Grey Cup, so don't tell the score to the sales staff. They're taping it.
And that's what makes it Saskatchewan. It's not built up from what Roger Aldaig's done. It's not built up from what George and Ronnie did.
This one's for the Grey Cup. Ridgway nods. The ball is snapped. The kick is up. And it's good! The Riders win! The Riders win!
It's the torch that's passed from generation to generation of football players that keeps that Rider pride alive, and that's what makes it special, is tradition.
I hear your riders are improving. Their fumbles are actually falling forward this year.
It's the Green Bay of the CFL. If Saskatchewan goes, the rest of the league is going to survive, because the Saskatchewan people make it go.
We got the Rider pride. Rider pride.
You're the best there is, best there was, and best there'll ever be. He's just out.
We got the, what do we got? Rider pride. You're not a bad guy. Later in the day.
And that's the key thing. It's that tradition of that hard work and that blood, that sweat, that going out there and doing it together and being successful while you're doing it. But, you know, you just hope you can carry that torch on when it's your turn to be that leader.
Rough Riders kicker, Dave Ridgway, ready to go in the first ever Grey Cup game in Toronto Skydome.
And keep that Rider pride together. That's the best way I can explain it.